Everyone thinks they know Kodak Black. The controversies, the headlines, the arrests. But what if I told you there's a side of his story the world never got to see? A side buried beneath the noise, the fame, and the chaos of a life lived under a spotlight he was never prepared for. This right here is a journey Kodak never got to fully explain. A journey of pain, of mistakes, of reawakening, and ultimately redemption. Because sometimes the greatest comeback starts at the lowest point. Before we unravel the untold chapters of Kodak's past, do me one favor, make sure you hit that like button, so this documentary reaches every fan who wants to see the truth behind the headlines. Subscribe if you love deep dives like this, and now, let's begin the story of Kodak Black's redemption. Before the headlines, before platinum plaques, before the world ever called him Kodak Black, there was just a kid named Dusan Octave, a boy growing up in the heart of Pompano Beach, Florida, in a concrete maze known as Golden Acres. Golden Acres was the kind of place that raised you fast and tested you young. Sirens weren't a surprise. They were a soundtrack. Opportunity didn't knock. It barely existed. And in a neighborhood where tomorrow wasn't promised, you learned to move like every day mattered. Kodak didn't grow up with options. He grew up surrounded by survival. Poverty wasn't a word, it was life. Food stamps, shared clothes, long nights, loud nights. But even in that darkness, there was rhythm of sound, a pulse, and that pulse became rap. While other kids dreamed of NBA courts and fame, Kodak just dreamed of peace. And the only place he ever found it was in music. Rap wasn't a hobby. It was a release valve, a lifeline of voice when he had none. He joined local rap crews, not because he thought he'd make it big, but because it was the first time people actually listened to him. But Kodak wasn't just playing around with rhymes. He was obsessed. Studios became sanctuaries, not the million-dollar ones, the backroom setups, the closet microphones, the mattresses stapled to walls for soundproofing. Track after track, verse after verse, Kodak sharpened his voice, a raw, unpolished, unfiltered voice that sounded exactly like where he came from. Then came SoundCloud, the gateway for every kid with a story and a beat. Kodak uploaded early tracks with no expectation, no marketing, no team, just truth. Those uploads traveled, first to Pompano, then all of Broward County, then across Florida, because people weren't just hearing music, they were hearing pain, hunger, struggle, and ambition. This was the birth of a movement, a street poet with gold dreams and no roadmap. And that identity, Project Baby, wasn't branding. It was reality. Kodak carried more than Florida on his back. He carried Haiti through language, culture, spirituality, and pride. Zoe culture, drum rhythms, island grit mixed with southern bass fusion that made him sound like nobody else. In a world telling him to fit in, Kodak doubled down on who he was. Unfiltered, unpolished, unapologetic. That was his power. Kodak didn't rap about fantasies. He rapped about life, not the highlight reel, the raw footage. And people who'd never had a voice suddenly had one through him. He represented the kids society ignored, the neighborhoods the industry never visited, the stories that rarely got told. But with every rise comes a reckoning. And just as Kodak's voice began to echo beyond the projects, the world outside his headphones, the legal system, the critics, the pressure began to close in. Kodak didn't rap to get famous. He rapped to survive. Every bar was a diary entry from the trenches. Every neighborhood has talent, but not every neighborhood has someone who breaks the gravitational pull of poverty and turns it into momentum. For Kodak Black, that moment arrived with a song the world didn't see coming. A song recorded in the same Florida rooms where dreams usually go silent. No flocking wasn't polished. It wasn't radio friendly. It wasn't made for charts. It was made for people who felt what Kodak felt daily. Within weeks, that raw Florida anthem leaked out of Pompano. Jump city lines, state lines. And suddenly Kodak wasn't just a local name anymore. He was a voice the internet couldn't ignore. Kids in Chicago, Atlanta, and New York, Houston, all yelling the same lyrics Kodak wrote in the trenches of Golden Acres. He didn't ask for viral fame, but viral fame came anyway. And Kodak realized something most artists never get to. The streets crowned him before the industry ever did. Then came the cosign heard across hip-hop. Drake, one of the biggest artists on earth, played Kodak's music publicly. Not out of obligation, not because the label told him to, but because he genuinely felt the music. And in just one moment, Kodak wasn't just Florida's secret anymore. He was global property. Once Drake acknowledged him, the domino effect began instantly. Phones rang. Executives flew in. Contract hit tables. Kodak didn't even know existed. Teenage Kodak, still fresh out of Pompano, still figuring out who he was suddenly being spoken to like a product, not a person. While other rising stars had media training, teams, mentors, Kodak had none of that. A kid from the projects was now sitting in front of million-dollar offers, cameras, and expectations, without a roadmap, without preparation. In those early interviews, fans didn't see a polished, media-ready celebrity. They saw a kid who still spoke like home, who still wore the scars of his upbringing in his voice, in his eyes, in his pauses. Without protection. He didn't fake smiles. He didn't water down his truth. And that's exactly why people gravitated toward him. Kodak didn't present perfection. He presented survival. He didn't rap about a character. He rapped about himself. Raw, damaged, honest. In a generation obsessed with image, Kodak became the opposite. Unfiltered, unpolished, undeniably real. But fame doesn't just open doors, it opens eyes, cameras, critics, and courtrooms. As Kodak's name climbed charts, the shadows he grew up escaping began following closely behind. Kodak wasn't polished. He wasn't industry ready. But he was real, and real always finds an audience. He went from golden acres to global stages, but success didn't arrive clean, quiet, or easy. Because while Kodak Black became a superstar, the street gravity never stopped pulling him back. One moment, he was performing for thousands, diamonds catching stage lights. The next, he was in a holding cell, hearing the clang of metal doors instead of fans screaming his lyrics. This was a shift the world began to magnify. At first, the story was Kodak the prodigy, the kid who broke out Pompano with no flocking, changing Florida rap forever. But suddenly, blogs and media weren't talking about the music anymore. It was no longer about the hunger in his voice or the pain in his bars. It was arrest reports, probation violations, headlines that never left his name alone. Each month felt like a new headline, a new judgment, a new wave of opinions from people who never lived what he survived. And this was Kodak's conflict. He wasn't just a rapper now, he was a symbol, a storyline, a constant debate between talent and turmoil. He stood between two realities, the world that raised him, where loyalty, survival, and the streets write the rules, and the world he was thrown into. Industry rooms, contracts, red carpets, expectations he never asked for. He was still young, still learning life in real time, but the camera never blinked. Every mistake was amplified. Every charge became a trending topic. Every hearing overshadowed every hit record. For Kodak, fame didn't erase the battles that highlighted them. He wasn't running from his past, but he also wasn't fully free from it. Every breakthrough came with a setback. Every charting single came with a courtroom date. Kodak Black became more than just a rapper. He became a reflection of what happens when a kid raised by survival suddenly becomes a star expected to be perfect. This was the price of success. Not money, not fame, but the world watching every misstep louder than any song he ever released. When you grow up fighting just to see the next day, fame doesn't erase survival instincts overnight. As the years moved forward, Kodak Black's name became bigger, but so did the headlines attached to it. What started as one or two charges quickly multiplied into a long-running cycle of arrests, court dates, probation violations, and mugshots. Each incident became another brick on his reputation, heavy, unavoidable, and constantly broadcast to the world. Time after time, he found himself behind bars. Every release was followed by a burst of creativity, a hit song, a moment of clarity, then another setback, another cell door closing. It wasn't just legal trouble anymore, it was a loop, a lifestyle he couldn't outrun, even with fame right in front of him. An emotional toll, you could hear it in his voice, in interviews and lyrics. Even in photos, Kodak looked older than his age, worn by pressure, the system, and the streets that raised him. He wasn't just battling cases. He was battling identity, expectations, and a past that refused to loosen its grip. But while he was sitting in jail, time outside kept moving without him. Trends changed, radio rotated new artists, labels shifted attention. Every sentence he served didn't just cost months of freedom, it cost momentum, opportunity. Songs that were never recorded, stages he never stepped on. Fans split into two worlds. Some said he had wasted his chance, that he proved the critics right. Others, the loyal ones, the project baby believers, stood firm, insisting he was a product of environment, a kid who never had the luxury to learn slowly or make mistakes quietly. Yet the media didn't care about nuance. They didn't care about the layers, the trauma, the upbringing. To them, Kodak wasn't a human story. He was a headline generator. Each article chipped away at the music, replacing it with judgment. The kid from Golden Acres who used rap to escape his circumstances was now trapped in a different kind of cage, one built from public perception. Kodak wasn't just serving time. He was serving a narrative the world had already decided for him. Every headline pushed him deeper into a narrative he didn't recognize but couldn't escape. Despite the chaos, the charges, and the constant magnifying glass over his life, there was another side of Kodak Black, a side that rarely made the front page. Back home in Pompano, Kodak wasn't just a rapper, he was a hometown son. Before the fame, before no flocking, before the mugshots, these were the same streets that raised him. And when he finally had the means to give back, he did it without hesitation. He funded school supplies for kids who reminded him of himself, kids who didn't grow up with brand new backpacks, sneakers, or books. He paid rent and covered bills for struggling families in the same project halls he once ran through barefoot. He donated thousands to community programs, food drives, even funeral costs for families with nowhere else to turn. And he didn't post it for clout. Most of those moments didn't come with cameras, captions, or a PR team. They were quiet acts of loyalty, the kind you do, because you know what it feels like to need help and not have anyone to call. Some saw these gestures as small, but the truth? They were signs. Signs that Kodak was changing not overnight, not perfectly, but genuinely. Even as music began to shift, the once raw, reckless energy evolved into reflection, vulnerability, and pain poured into melody. Tracks where you could hear him wrestling with guilt, celebrating survival, and honoring the streets without drowning in them. He wasn't just rapping about Project Baby life anymore. He was unpacking it, finding meaning in trauma, turning mistakes into lessons. Kodak wasn't trying to prove he was an angel. He was trying to prove he was human, because growth isn't loud. It isn't glamorous. It isn't a headline. Sometimes it's a rapper handing out school supplies in his old neighborhood, quietly hoping that one kid, just one, won't have to survive everything he did. Even in the darkest storms, there were flashes of light, proof that Kodak Black wasn't the monster many claimed he was. Prison has a way of stripping everything away: the music, the jewelry, the entourage, the stage lights, until all that's left is the person you truly are. For Kodak Black, federal prison wasn't just confinement, it was confrontation. Inside those walls, there was no fame to hide behind, no hit record to erase the mistakes, no cameras to portray him as anything other than a man dealing with his decisions. This was the moment the world went silent, and he had no choice but to finally look in the mirror. What surprised many is how he responded. Instead of letting the darkness swallow him, Kodak started searching for purpose. He turned his cell into a classroom, a chapel, and occasionally a confessional. He wrote letters to fans, not just updates, but gratitude, apology, reflection. Letters that showed a quieter Kodak, a humbled Kodak. A Kodak trying to understand not just what he had done, but why. He began reading more than he ever had before. Books on discipline, business, spirituality, the kind of texts that force you to sharpen the mind when the world outside wants to dull it. Bible verses lined his bunk. He prayed more. He listened more. He sat with his thoughts instead of running from them. One former cellmate recalled that Kodak wasn't animated, wild, or boastful the way tabloids painted him. He was quiet, respectful, often lost in notebooks, always writing songs, prayers, ideas for businesses he planned to launch once he got home. He wasn't wasting time. He was studying it, learning from it, molding it. Prison didn't make him perfect, but it made him present. It was the first time in his young life that the noise stopped long enough for him to hear himself think. The trauma, the fame, the streets, the missteps, all of it came crashing together, not as punishment, but as clarity. And in that clarity, Kodak realized something. He didn't just want to be Project Baby forever. He wanted to evolve as a leader, as a man, as someone who could turn pain into blueprint for those coming up behind him. This wasn't regression. It was reflection, a rare pause in a life that had moved too fast for too long. Because sometimes redemption doesn't begin with applause, but with a locked door for concrete walls, and a young man whispering his first honest prayer in years. Locked away from the world, Kodak finally found something he never had before: silence. And in that silence grew. On January 20th, 2021, as a nation watched the presidential transition unfold, something no one saw coming hit the rap world like a tidal wave. It wasn't just news, it was shock. Social media froze. Comment sections exploded. Fans, critics, blogs, networks, everyone had a reaction, and none of them were quiet. Some said, he deserved it. Others said he didn't. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was a second chance very few people ever get. The reaction was immediate and intense. Supporters cheered like a playoff victory. Project Baby free. He needed this. God gave him another shot. But critics, they sharpened their voices. He won't change. He's just going to throw this away. This is wasted mercy. The world split in two: love and skepticism, hope and doubt, redemption and the reminder of his past. And in the middle of that storm stood Kodak, not screaming, not flexing, not celebrating the way the internet expected, but thanking, quietly, intentionally. He spoke to his fans, first the ones who stayed when the headlines didn't, the ones who wrote him letters, streamed his music, prayed for him, believed in the boy from Golden Acres when the world painted him irredeemable. Then he made a promise, not to the cameras, not to the critics, but to himself. This time, I'm moving different. Kodak vowed to use his freedom with purpose. No more wasted time, no more cycles, no more drowning in the same waters he had finally escaped. This wasn't the same Kodak who walked into prison. This was a man who had spent nights staring at concrete ceilings, asking God why him, and more importantly, why a second chance. He showed gratitude instead of attitude, humility instead of headlines, reflection instead of rebellion. The pardon didn't erase his past, but opened a door to rewrite the future. And for the first time in a long time, Kodak wasn't running from the opportunity. He was stepping into it, because second chances are rare. And for someone who lived fast, hurt fast, loved fast, and fell hard, this was more than freedom. It was a reset, a divine pause, a moment that whispered, "You survived. Now build." For the first time in years, Kodak had a clean slate, but what he did next would decide everything. When Kodak Black walked back into the world, he didn't return quietly. He returned with purpose and a record that reminded everyone exactly who he was. Then it happened, a haunting piano melody, a hook that felt like both confession and celebration, a song that didn't just drop, it detonated. Within days, Kodak was not just back. He was everywhere. Billboard, TikTok, radio rotations, clubs, car speakers in every city from Miami to Lagos. It wasn't just a comeback single. It was a statement. Kodak Black still had it. The hunger, the voice, the pain, the truth. Super Gremlin climbed into the Billboard Hot 100 like it had a destiny of its own. Platinum plaques returned. Interviews hit different now, calmer, clearer, more measured. This wasn't the wild teenage star trying to figure out the spotlight. This was a man who'd lost the world and earned a second shot at it. And behind the music, something else was changing. Kodak started tightening his circle. Fewer legal issues, fewer impulsive outbursts, a new discipline in the studio. Recording sessions became therapy. Dark beats turned into personal revelations. Hooks carried sorrow and survival, not just flex and chaos. He was rebuilding brick by brick. His team, his sound, his peace. He started showing up for fans not just as a performer, but as someone trying to make amends with the world that once judged him and the world he once hurt. Community work grew. School drives, donations, holiday support. Haiti relief efforts continued as he embraced his heritage instead of just referencing it. Kodak wasn't trying to outrun his past anymore. He was trying to outrise it. What made Super Gremlin special wasn't its charts, but its honesty. It carried betrayal, pain, forgiveness, confusion, the complicated emotions of someone who's been both villain and victim in his own story. Kodak sounded older, wiser, but still Kodak, still raw, still Florida, still Project Baby, just with more pages in the book now. His voice wasn't just rapping, it was remembering. He stepped back into the spotlight not as a reckless prodigy, but as a survivor who'd finally learned to breathe in the fame instead of drowning in it. And as the world began to cheer again, something became clear. Kodak Black wasn't just back. He was reborn. The rebirth didn't erase the scars. It honored them, because redemption isn't about pretending the darkness never existed. It's about proving you can walk out of it and still shine. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a rebirth. Fame gave Kodak Black a platform, but it never gave him peace. People saw the diamonds, the plaques, the private jets, but they didn't see the nights he spent alone, replaying every mistake in his mind like a broken movie reel. Even after Super Gremlin, even after the charts, even after Pardon, Kodak still carried a weight heavier than any chain. Because the truth is, Success doesn't silence demons. Sometimes it amplifies them. He was still fighting old tendencies, old mindsets, old environments that clawed at his progress. A man reborn, but still haunted by the echoes of the life that raised him. Project Baby wasn't just a name, it was a reality, a trauma, a survival code that didn't disappear just because the world finally applauded him. People expected transformation to be instant. He got a second chance, why isn't he perfect yet? He's free now, why isn't he flawless? But growth isn't a light switch. It's a slow climb. Every day, Kodak learned to trust fewer people. Not out of arrogance, but out of survival. The fame that once felt like validation started to feel like surveillance. Everyone watching, everyone judging, everyone waiting for him to slip. Some rooting for him, others rooting against him. He still battled impulse. Still wrestled with pain he never fully learned how to talk about. Still felt misunderstood, a kid from Pompano thrown onto a global stage before he learned to heal. Too many people wanted a rapper, but forgot about the human. Kodak wasn't just fixing his reputation. He was trying to fix his soul. Therapy attempts, spiritual counsel, moments of clarity, followed by moments of collapse. It wasn't linear. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't clean. He was trying genuinely to rise without repeating. But the hardest part of evolving isn't changing your surroundings. It's changing the parts of you that your surroundings created. Fame gave him opportunity, but it couldn't give him inner peace. Couldn't erase trauma. Couldn't untangle years of street mentality, survival instinct, loss, and pressure. Sometimes Kodak stood in rooms filled with people and still felt alone. Sometimes the cheers sounded like noise. Sometimes the spotlight felt like interrogation. He wasn't just fighting critics or courts anymore. He was fighting himself, learning patience instead of reaction, discernment over impulse, silence over chaos. Every step forward was a battle, not just against the past, but against the parts of himself shaped by it. Because redemption isn't a moment, it's a lifetime. And even with Billboard hits, presidential pardons, and renewed fame, Kodak was still learning how to be whole. Not perfect, just whole. And that journey, the quiet one, the internal one, has always been the hardest. Redemption is not a straight line. It's a road with cracks, bumps, and temptations at every turn. Strip away the headlines. Strip away the cases. Strip away the noise of fame and the echoes of controversy. And what you find isn't a villain, or a troubled rapper, or even a misunderstood celebrity. What you find is Bill Capri, Kodak Black the human, the complex, emotional, loyal, inconsistent, gifted, wounded young man, still trying to figure out life while the whole world watches. In interviews, when the cameras aren't demanding drama, and the questions aren't fishing for chaos, you hear him speak with surprising calm. You notice the introspection, the intelligence that rarely makes its way into headlines, the empathy that doesn't trend on social feeds. He talks about his neighborhood, Golden Acres, not as a backdrop, but as a heartbeat, a place that taught him hunger, fight, loyalty, but also pain, loss, and survival instincts that still follow him like shadows. Kodak doesn't run for his roots, he honors them, not because he's stuck there, but because they made him resilient enough to withstand everything that came after. Fans might love Kodak for his hits, but true supporters love him for something deeper. His honesty. He doesn't hide the trauma in metaphors. He raps it raw, unfiltered, uninterpreted. When he says he's hurting, you believe him. When he says he's trying, you feel that too. He's not afraid to sound broken. He's not afraid to sound confused. He's not afraid to admit that fame didn't fix the boy inside the man. That vulnerability is the reason so many people connect to him. People who grew up in similar environments. People who've been judged before they were understood. People who've been expected to heal before they've even had time to breathe. Kodak Black is a walking duality. Hard exterior, soft interior. Street warrior, emotional poet, loyal to the block, trying to grow beyond it. He can be reckless, impulsive, chaotic, then suddenly introspective, loving, spiritual. A kid who never learned the language of healing, yet somehow manages to communicate pain more clearly than most adults ever could. This is what makes him captivating. Not the controversy, but the contradiction. Because Kodak is not just a rapper trying to bounce back. He is a human trying to evolve while the world keeps reminding him who he used to be. So, who is Kodak Black really? A survivor, a son, a product of a world that shaped him too early, a heart wrapped in armor, a fighter with tears still drying on the inside. He is the boy who became a star faster than he became a man, and is now trying, step by step, mistake by mistake, song by song, to merge the two. Beneath the gold grills and the viral moments was a young man begging to be understood. Redemption isn't finished just because the world applauds. It isn't sealed by a Billboard hit, or a presidential pardon, or even a viral comeback anthem. For Kodak Black, redemption is daily work, a constant balancing act between who he was, who he is, and who he's trying to become. In recent years, Kodak's journey has shifted away from chaos and toward continuity. Not headlines, habits, not statements, actions. He's released new music with a different tone. Less rage, more reflection. Less bravado, more depth. Songs about growth, responsibility, even fatherhood. Because now, Kodak isn't just a rap figure. He's a father with tiny eyes watching his every move. And that changes a man in ways fame never could. Where he once chased the nightlife, he now chases peace. Studio sessions have turned into therapy rooms. Not just for Kodak, but for the memories, the fears, the regrets he's learning to let go. He understands now that the world doesn't need another headline about his mistakes. It needs an example of his progress. There's still days when the past pulls at him. Days when the streets whisper the old rhythms. Days when he feels the weight of a world waiting for him to stumble. But Kodak keeps moving. Slowly, deliberately. No sudden explosions, no impulsive spirals. Just work, music, family, healing. He speaks more softly in interviews now. Not defeated. Aware that fame is fragile. Aware that childhood wounds don't close overnight. Aware that legacy isn't a song. It's a lifetime. Kodak no longer seems like a boy running from his darkness, but a man learning to walk beside it without letting it swallow him. His maturity isn't loud or dramatic. It's gradual, imperfect, human. A shift in tone, a calmer presence, a steady voice trying to rewrite the ending before it gets written for him. Kodak once climbed the charts with force. Now, he rises with intention, not to prove the world wrong, but to prove to himself that he can outgrow the narrative he inherited. They once said he was destined to crash. They once said Project Baby would never make it past the projects. But he did. And now, more than ever, he's fighting not just for survival, but for legacy, for his children, for his name, for the parts of himself that the world never cared to understand. The redemption arc isn't over. It's still unfolding, quietly, painfully, beautifully. A young man who once lived on impulse now lives on intention. Because Kodak Black isn't just trying to be better for headlines. He's trying to be better for himself. He's not perfect. He never claimed to be, but he's fighting every day to become a better version of himself. Kodak Black's story isn't just another rap come-up. It's a full circle evolution, one that started in the rawest corners of Pompano, where survival was a first language, and hope was a luxury few could afford. He entered the world as the Project Baby, a kid with gold grills, pain-filled eyes, and a voice that carried stories no classroom ever taught him to write. But somewhere along the chaos, somewhere between bookings, headlines, and platinum plaques, Kodak began seeking something deeper than success. He started looking for meaning. You can see it in his interviews now, the way he pauses before answering, the softness that wasn't visible when the industry first met him. He speaks like someone who's seen both heaven and hell, and is finally learning which road he wants to walk. This growth didn't come overnight. It came through consequences, loss, fatherhood, and the quiet realization that fame doesn't rewrite your soul. It only magnifies who you already are. Kodak has learned that purpose is more than accolades. It's about breaking cycles. It's about ensuring that Project Baby becomes a man with vision, not just a rapper with hits. The lessons he's carrying now are heavy, but necessary. Not everyone deserves access. Loyalty doesn't equal proximity. Growth requires letting go of who you used to be. And that's why his story matters. Because Kodak isn't just trying to change the narrative the world tells about him. He's trying to change the narrative he tells himself. He is building a legacy not just in music, but in resilience, fatherhood, reflection, and redemption. From the projects, to global stages, to quiet nights where he questions his next move. Kodak's journey is a reminder that transformation isn't instant. It's earned, it's painful, it's deliberate, and through every misstep and every moment of clarity, one truth rings louder than any charting single. The Project Baby didn't just survive. He's learning how to live with purpose. Kodak Black's redemption is not about proving the world wrong. It's about proving himself right. And no matter what the future holds, his journey will forever remind us that even in the darkest places, a spark of light can survive. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Drop a comment saying redemption so I know you watched to the end. Hit like, subscribe, and share this documentary if you want more deep dive stories like this. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay tuned.